For more than half a century, she kept it to herself. The cameras had long stopped rolling, and most assumed the story ended there. But at 89, Julie Newmar, forever remembered as the original Catwoman, broke her silence. She finally spoke about Adam West, the man behind the cape and cowl, and what she revealed left even longtime fans speechless. Why now? And what had she been hiding all these years? The truth, it turns out, went far deeper than anyone expected. In the golden glow of 1960s television, few shows burned brighter than Batman. It was campy, colorful, and completely unforgettable. Airing from 1966 to 1968, it brought a comic book world to life, turning it into must-watch television for millions. But for all its flash and flare, it was the chemistry between its stars that truly made it iconic. Adam West, with his straight-faced charm and dry delivery, became the definitive Batman for a generation. Opposite him, Julie Newmar slinked onto the screen as Catwoman, captivating audiences with her wit, elegance, and undeniable presence. Their on-screen tension was electric, flirty, dangerous, and always teetering on the edge of something more. Fans tuned in not just for the crime-fighting antics, but for the charged exchanges between hero and villain. Julie's Catwoman wasn't just a typical antagonist. She was layered, alluring, and strangely sympathetic. And Adam's Batman, he never quite knew what to do with her, torn between justice and something far more human. Behind the scenes, their dynamic fascinated crew members and co-stars alike. Were they just acting, or was there something real beneath the surface? As the series gained cult status over the decades, that question never really went away. Comic book historians, pop culture writers, and fans at conventions would often speculate, was there ever something between Julie and Adam? Adam West stayed in the public eye, open, witty, and reflective about his time in the cowl. Julie Newmar, on the other hand, kept a certain distance. She embraced her fame, appeared at panels, and spoke fondly about the character of Catwoman, often with a playful wink. But whenever the topic turned to Adam West, her answers were polite, brief, and carefully measured. The truth behind their connection, what they shared or didn't share, remained locked away in the vault of television history. Filming. Batman was anything but ordinary. The show's over-the-top style demanded high energy, tight schedules, and a flair for the theatrical, but it was also a playground for actors who were in on the joke. Adam West and Julie Newmar played their parts to perfection. On set, Adam was known for his dry humor and calm demeanor. He rarely broke character, even between takes, and brought a subtle intelligence to a role that could have easily become pure camp. Julie, meanwhile, added an unpredictable spark. She was bold, imaginative, and carried herself like someone who always knew more than she let on. Together, their scenes sizzled. Directors and crew members noticed it immediately. The way Adam would hold his gaze a second too long. The way Julie could twist a single word until it sounded like an invitation. The scripts gave them the lines, but the chemistry was entirely theirs. Off-camera, though, things were more complicated. The show's whirlwind schedule left little room for personal time. Cast members often described the atmosphere as professional but playful. Julie and Adam got along well, but they never seemed especially close outside of work. No romantic whispers, no lingering goodbyes, just two stars playing their parts and going their separate ways. At least that's what everyone thought. Julie would later describe those days as a kind of dream. She remembered the costumes, the bright sets, the laughter between takes. But when asked directly about Adam, she often smiled cryptically or changed the subject. He was very good at what he did, she once said, and he knew how to keep a secret. There were moments that stood out even then. During one particularly long shoot, Adam reportedly brought Julie a single rose between scenes. Nothing extravagant, just thoughtful. Another time, she stopped filming to fix a piece of his utility belt that had gone askew, drawing quiet laughter from the crew. These small gestures hinted at something warmer beneath the surface, a quiet understanding, maybe even admiration, but the two never spoke of it. Not in interviews, not in memoirs, not even decades later. When the world had long moved on from Gotham's colorful streets, fans noticed. They always do. Conspiracy theories popped up on forums, and old clips were replayed, slowed down, analyzed. Some were convinced Julie and Adam had shared something personal, something that had to be hidden in that era. Others chalked it up to good acting and nostalgia. But everyone agreed on one thing. Whatever was or wasn't between them never fully disappeared. Even as reruns aired for new generations, the question lingered. What really happened between Batman and Catwoman? And why had Julie stayed silent for so long? When Batman ended in 1968, the cast scattered like smoke from a rooftop chase. Adam West found himself typecast, forever tied to the cape and cowl. He struggled at first to find serious roles, but eventually embraced the legacy, transforming what once felt like a limitation into a kind of crown. Through fan conventions, voice work, and self-aware humor, Adam West turned Batman into more than a role. It became his legend. Julie Newmar took a different path. She distanced herself from the role that had made her famous, diving into theater, writing, and even inventing. She became something of an enigma, still admired, still glamorous, but increasingly private. And when she did re-emerge, it was always on her terms. Over the years, Adam and Julie were occasionally seen at the same events, especially as Batman's fandom swelled with new generations of fans. But something was always missing. Unlike other celebrity reunions where old co-stars embraced and reminisced freely, there was a quiet restraint between them, a formality, a line neither seemed eager to cross. Julie gave interviews about her time as Catwoman, often focusing on the costumes, the choreography, and the joy of performing. But when the topic turned to Adam West, her answers were consistently brief. Respectful, yes, but distant. She praised his professionalism and often called him a gentleman, but those compliments always sounded careful, almost rehearsed. Fans noticed. So did interviewers. In contrast, Adam was more open. He often spoke fondly about his time on Batman and never had a bad word for his co-stars. In a few late interviews, he even described Julie as magnificent and utterly unique. Yet he never hinted at anything deeper either. It was as if their connection existed within an invisible boundary, something understood but never acknowledged. That silence lasted for decades. Through television retrospectives, through Comic-Con, Q&As, even after Adam's death in 2017, Julie stayed mostly silent. She offered a kind, elegant tribute, a few simple sentences expressing admiration and gratitude, but once again, it left more unsaid than said. Why did she hold back? Some believed it was simply her nature, private, protective, dignified. Others speculated that whatever she and Adam shared, it had been too complicated or too personal to reduce to anecdotes. Still, the absence of clarity only deepened the fascination. In an era when celebrities often revealed too much, Julie Newmar revealed almost nothing. Until, quietly, that began to change. Not all at once, but gradually, through tone, through reflection, through the softening of time. As she approached her late 80s, her interviews took on a gentler rhythm. She began to speak more openly, not just about Batman, but about what those years had meant to her. Her stories were warmer, her words less guarded. Piece by piece, the wall she had built began to come down. Something had shifted. And for the first time in more than 50 years, Julie Newmar seemed ready to tell the truth. Long before any formal admission. There had been signs. Small, easily missed moments scattered across decades, like clues in an old detective story. Most people overlooked them. A few paid attention. Only now, in hindsight, do they form a clearer picture. Julie Newmar always had a way with words. Even when she said very little, it carried weight. In the 1980s and 1990s, Julie Newmar occasionally appeared at fan conventions. When asked about Adam West, her answers were often accompanied by a playful smirk or a raised brow. "He was very Batman," she once said, leaving the audience to interpret her meaning. In another interview from the early 2000s, she praised Adam's professionalism on set and then, almost as an afterthought, added, "Too professional sometimes." That was the trouble. She laughed, but offered no explanation, and the interviewer moved on. The fans, however, didn't. As the years went on, Julie became more comfortable discussing the cultural impact of Catwoman. She spoke about empowerment, elegance, and the fine balance between danger and charm. Yet Adam's name remained a rare presence in her stories, like a missing character in a familiar tale. There were written pieces, too. Julie, a graceful and articulate writer, often shared essays and reflections online. In one tribute to old Hollywood romances, she mentioned, "A man who never said what he felt, but whose silence said everything." She never named him, but fans speculated. Even into the 2010s, during a renewed wave of Batman nostalgia, Julie maintained her composure in documentaries and retrospectives. She smiled beside former castmates, shared fond memories, and spoke warmly about the era. But whenever Adam's name came up, she would pivot to stories about costumes, stunts, lighting, or lipstick. Every now and then, though, something in her expression shifted. Her voice would soften, her gaze would drift, as if she'd stepped into a memory and wasn't sure whether to stay or step back. Then came a particular fan panel in 2016, just a year before Adam's passing. A fan asked Julie directly if she had ever had feelings for her co-star. The room went quiet. Julie paused, smiled faintly, and said softly, "There was something beautiful there. But beauty sometimes is meant to be brief." It wasn't a confession, not exactly. But it was the closest she had ever come to opening that door. After Adam West's death in 2017, Julie posted a short message online. It was simple and poetic. "You wore the cape with honor, and behind the mask, a heart too full to speak." There were no interviews that followed. No elaboration, no explanations, just that. But by then, the hints had piled up. The way she spoke, the things she left unsaid, the flicker of sadness whenever his name came up. It all told a quiet story. She had carried something for a long time, something unspoken but never forgotten, and in the twilight of her years, it seemed the weight of that silence had finally grown too heavy to keep. By the time she reached 89, Julie Newmar had outlived nearly all the bright lights of her era. Her elegance remained intact, her voice still carrying that unmistakable calm, but something within her had shifted. In recent interviews and public appearances, she displayed a new openness, not just about her career, but about her life, her memories, and her legacy. Her reflections had grown inward, tinged with a quiet urgency, as if she understood that the window to share certain truths was closing. The turning point came during a live-streamed Q&A, part of a digital fan celebration. The session began casually, with light-hearted questions about costumes, stunts, and favorite episodes. Then, as always, someone asked about Adam West, but this time the tone was different. Gentle, almost reverent. "Is there something you always wanted to say to Adam, but never got the chance?" Julie paused. The host began to move on, but she lifted her hand slowly and spoke. "Yes, there is." She looked off camera for a moment, gathering herself. You reach a point in life where silence becomes heavier than the truth. And I've carried this one long enough. The room seemed to shift. Everyone, audience, host, crew, knew they were about to hear something long unsaid. She revealed that she had loved working with Adam, that she admired him deeply both on screen and off. But it was more than admiration. There was a time, she said, when I wished he had looked at me not as Catwoman, but just as Julie, and I think maybe he did, but neither of us said it. Her words were tender, quiet, and entirely honest. Not dramatic, not scandalous. She explained how the timing had never been right, how both had been cautious, how careers and reputations, especially in that era, came before personal feelings. We were icons before we were people. That was the price. When asked why she chose to speak now, she replied simply, because love, even unspoken, deserves a voice. There were no gasps, no sensational headlines, just a shared, intimate pause that lingered in the digital air like a curtain finally being drawn. Julie smiled afterward, not with relief but with peace. For decades, fans had speculated, writers had guessed, and now, at last, the truth had a voice. Julie Newmar's revelation at 89 was not about scandal, nor about secret affairs or hidden rendezvous. It was about something far subtler, yet profoundly human. The quiet, unspoken connection she shared with Adam West. After decades of speculation, her words finally gave form to what had long existed between them. A love that was felt deeply, but never pursued, lingering instead in glances, pauses, and the unspoken understanding of two people who shared something rare yet delicate. In follow-up interviews, Julie explained that their bond had grown in the spaces between scenes, in long conversations about life, dreams, and fears. She remembered Adam confessing that the hardest part of being Batman was pretending to be brave when he felt anything but. They were close, yet always maintained a careful distance, shaped by studio scrutiny, timing, and fear. I was afraid that if we acknowledged it, whatever it was, it would disappear, she admitted. So, it lived quietly in the shared moments that no one else saw. Julie emphasized that this truth carried no bitterness or regret. Instead, it was gratitude for something beautiful in its restraint. Some things are beautiful because they never become real, she said. They live in memory, unspoiled, a silent testament to connection without possession. Fans responded deeply, sharing their own stories of unspoken love, and Julie honored them with a reflective essay titled, What We Never Said. Adam West never publicly acknowledged these feelings, but in retrospect, one can sense the quiet echoes in the warmth of his mentions of her over the years. Her revelation did not rewrite history. It illuminated it, casting gentle light on the tenderness always present, just out of frame. When the final curtain falls, it is not only the roles actors play that remain, but the feelings they awaken, the unspoken human truths they convey, and the quiet, enduring beauty of what lies between words. This beautifully encapsulates the enduring magic of Adam West and Julie Newmar, not just as Batman and Catwoman, but as human beings whose quiet, unspoken bond added depth to their iconic roles. Their story shows that legacy is more than fame or spectacle. It's about the subtle, intimate moments that linger unseen, shaping how we remember them. Julie's late-life confession enriched their legend without sensationalizing it. It revealed the tenderness behind their performances, the respect and restrained affection that existed off-screen, and the wisdom of holding something sacred until the right moment to share it arrived. Fans now can see their interactions in a new light, understanding that the magic wasn't just in the costumes or the dialogue, it was in the connection they shared. Careful, private, and real, ultimately, their story is a lesson in grace. Love and admiration do not always need to be acted upon to be meaningful. Sometimes what's unspoken becomes the most enduring, teaching us that some relationships, preserved quietly, are unforgettable precisely because of their subtlety. In a world of spectacle and oversharing, their legacy is a gentle reminder that the quiet moments often leave the loudest echoes. Batman and Catwoman played a game of cat and mouse. Yes, but behind the masks were two people whose unspoken connection became timeless, proving that the most powerful stories are sometimes the ones lived in silence.